Travis Campbell.
What are you doing?
Well, I'm talking to you on
Uh,
a beautiful, perfect day in Southern California.
I thought you were about to just say I'm a beautiful and perfect man.
Well, you
Even though
are.
I have a cold face, I thought you were going to say that.
Just goes without saying.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
All right.
Well,
So
my
this
wife
is
says I need a haircut, so which is
this
probably
is
true.
this is Notes On with Ross and Travis. We take on anything that relates to our Christian faith, especially we try to focus on the stuff that makes a difference personally. And we try to do Christ on purpose on this show. We're in the middle of a series on are people basically good? And Travis, do you have anything you want to say? I want to review a little bit, but what did you think of the couple of shows we've done so far on this?
I really liked how you laid it out, and I know that you're benefiting a lot from is it Dan Story, his work on this, and some others. So I think that I think that there is a presumption that people have in our culture that people are just basically good, and
Yeah,
hopefully some of the events that have gone on. I mean, we may have said this before, but G.K. Chesterton said that original sin is the one Christian belief that's empirically verifiable. And just read you don't have to read the Bible, just read the newspaper, and you know that human beings are really we're not good people. We're not good.
you have to willfully not believe it. I think.
Right.
I want to review a little bit because I came up with an angle that I hadn't thought of before. And so let's start at the top. We're talking about, are people basically good? We're going to answer that, of course, in the negative, extremely negative. It's really two worldviews, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
One is that we are deeply fallen and flawed, like the Bible seems to say. The other is that we are basically good and we can save ourselves, and maybe we need a little education and a little help, which is a self-refuting argument in itself. We'll get to that later. But um, these two worldviews have real deep and different implications if you play them out. And I think I defined good as an active thing. It's not a lack of a negative. It's not like, well, I don't kill people and I don't cheat on my wife, and I basically try to tell the truth. So I'm a good person. That's not it. And so the little wrinkle that I added was, from a Christian standpoint, I want to say, what would a good person look like? If we were a good person, what would our life be like? And I think that adds a little flesh to the debate. And I think we would wake up in the morning, Travis, and be absolutely focused on everyone else other than ourselves. If we were a good person, and I think this is what it would have been in Eden had we not fallen. It's what it was for Adam and Eve. I think that we would have fed ourselves, and we would have used the toilet, and we would have gotten enough sleep. But our essential focus, the thing we spent our time doing every day, would have been making sure that everyone else was taken care of, making sure that the other person was happy, making sure that no one else was getting left behind or
Right.
forgotten. And I think the reason that would work is because other people would be doing it for us. So we wouldn't need to be focused on ourselves. And
There'd be a lot of reciprocation going on.
a lot of reciprocation. And I think you and I are going to do a series in the future about love, as the greatest commandment, how we're supposed to treat each other. And I would really want to expand on this in that talk. But for now, I just want to say this is how we are to live. And in my opinion, all the commands in the Bible, after the after the garden in the Old Testament and especially in the New Testament can be characterized as a call back to Eden. When Jesus says the greatest commandment is to love God and the second just like it to love other people, why is he telling us that? Because we lost it. We lost the natural innate desire and ability to do that. But that's what a good person would look like. And if you look at that as the standard, nobody is good.
Right.
And
If I were a good person, I would always do what I know I ought to do, and I would always refrain from doing what I know I ought to refrain from doing.
That's
And the
right.
very fact that I don't do that, and the very fact that I have to, when I do that, sometimes I do that with great struggle, is an indication that I'm not a naturally good person.
Right. That's right. And so we would always be seeking the good of other people before our own good. We'd give people the benefit of the doubt, and we would be our every other thought would be thanking God for this amazing opportunity that we have to be in the world and be with other people. We'd be distracted by God's goodness.
Yeah.
And if that's the standard, man, every single human being is a train wreck, including me, including me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think I think I said this. The analogy I like to use is, in Eden we were dancing on the edge of the Grand Canyon, and when we fell, we fell down one of those 3,000-foot cliffs to the bottom, and it was a huge fall. It wasn't just a little couple of steps. It was a complete reboot. And the history of the world since the fall, we're trying to scrape our way back up that cliff, and we haven't even gotten a couple of steps.
Right, and I'm glad you're saying that. It reminds us of our interview with Lane Tipton, and I've mentioned that since we started this series on human depravity. But Lane points out, there's some Christian traditions that have a view of the fall where the fall is very small, and really the fall is the removal of a gift. But we believe that the fall is really the fall of human nature. It really is what it sounds like. Human beings are fallen, not just because we've had certain gifts taken away from us. We have fallen. And so we actually have a higher view of human beings in the garden, because we are actually intrinsically good and righteous and so forth. And the fall destroyed our nature in many respects. As we often say, the image of God was defaced but not erased. But that defacement was horrible. And so even the ability, if you see an anti-Christian person do anything that we could consider good, whether it's read a book and learn from it, or walk an old lady across the street, or simply refrain from doing something that they want to do but they know is bad, that person is the recipient of God's grace. They would not be able to do those things if God were not first gracious to that person.
Yeah. So, I think it really is that bad. And, one of the arguments to me, one of the strongest arguments there is for this, and it's kind of later in my notes, but I'll lay it out now, is I know people aren't basically good because I know my heart, and I know I'm not basically good.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to be more honest when we try to make this argument just about our own self. We talk about it in the third person, and we talk about it in sort of this ethereal way, but I'm a mess. I'll tell this story. I've always struggled with my temper. I've always had a temper, and through the God's grace, the last few years, it's been way better. But I remember one time.
It's since you met me, I've just had this great effect on you.
It's that aura. I just can't help but stare at your face. That's right. I remember one day a few years ago, I was having a great day. Work was good. It was just a good day. I was really enjoying myself. I had no reason to be upset about anything. And I remember some small little thing happened. And I went from 0 to pissed off in about a second, right? Which is kind of the way I am. And it really affected me, Travis. I mean, I got over it. It wasn't that so much as the fact that I really, really looked at that for years. And I realized I can't pin that on anything else. Nobody did it to me. It wasn't the circumstances of my life. It wasn't because there was some horrible thing that had happened. I was having a good day and I got really angry. And it came from deep down inside of me. And I remember thinking, where in the heck did that come from? What is that? Well, it's exactly what we're talking about here. There's something in us, there's something in me that is busted. It's broken. And I just think, when we make this argument, it's really effective if we are willing to talk about ourselves.
Oh, sure. Oh, absolutely. I mean, the first step is recognizing that you're a sinner in desperate need of God's grace and forgiveness. And if you're not at that point, Jesus himself says, I've come to call sinners to repentance, not those who are doing well. Those who are doing well don't see themselves as needing a savior.
Yeah. Well, Travis, I want to put the PowerPoint up that we started at. We've kind of reviewed here. Let me go. I want to do a couple of the verses that we talked about because they're kind of what I just stop me if you see something you want to talk about here.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the one that really touched me. Mark 7, starting at 21. For from within, out of the heart of man, come evil thoughts, sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, coveting, wickedness, deceit, sensuality, envy, slander, pride, foolishness. All these evil things come from within, and they defile a person. This is one of the greatest statements of human psychology that's ever been written.
Yeah.
And, twice in that verse it says, from within, not because of circumstances, not because of what other people did to you. It's from within, and that's just right in line with that story I was just telling.
Right. And the religions of the world flip it. And in fact, even the religious leaders that Jesus is talking to in this passage, they flip that. The problem is circumstances. And I need to dig within and perform deeds from within the heart, and I will be able to overcome the evil that's outside.
Right.
I can rein in my circumstances by ordering myself according to the law of God, according to, and then just fill in the blank. Whatever the religion is, whatever the solution is, I just order myself according to that. The solution is in here, and I can perform the law that is external to me. And Jesus is saying, no, the problem is in here, and the solution is outside. And what is the first solution God gives us? His law. And if we follow the law perfectly, we'd be fine. But what we learn through experience is that we can't follow the law. And that proves to us that we're the very thing that Jesus is saying we are right here. And therefore, God's Spirit has to put the law in our hearts so that we do actually follow it.
That's right. And getting the law is just the first step. That tells us what good is, because we don't even know that.
Mm.
And then we realize, once we know what good is, we realize we can't do it. It just makes it worse.
Right.
So, okay, so let me go here. Continue. For I know, this is Romans 7, for I know that nothing good dwells in me, that is, in my flesh. For I have the desire to do what is right, but not the ability to carry it out. That's what you're just talking about.
Right. And I would even say that even that desire that Paul has, I think Paul is speaking as a Christian in this text,
Yes.
but he's recognizing the depravity that is lingering even after he gets saved. And there is a debate on that, by the way, among scholars, but that's the position I hold. He's already said in Romans 3 that no one is good, no, not one, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so the question is, how is it that he currently has the desire to carry out what is right if nothing good is within him? Well, that's because now he's speaking as a Christian who has believed in Christ and the Spirit dwells within him. So there is a principle of goodness now within him, a true desire to do what is right, despite the fact that there's a conflicting desire from the flesh to do what is wrong. And so there's this warfare going on within him.
Yeah, very good. Okay, let's go to where we left off last time. And this idea that people are basically good is found in every segment of our culture. Mm-hmm. And what I want to do is talk about where it is and why do people believe it. But then we may not get to it in this show, but Travis, then we can talk about evidentially why is it completely wrong. And so let's start with atheism. It's kind of obvious here. It seems like it would take a really honest atheist to say, I don't believe in God or anything transcendent, and I think people are basically really screwed up. So, we're
sure.
all the only hope they have is they can say, well, I don't believe that God exists, but things are going to get better. If we just pull ourselves up by the bootstraps, we'll be able to put this together. And this whole transhumanism thing is coming, where we can keep ourselves alive forever. And since we're basically good, we'll find a way through this.
Right.
And then I see it a lot in contemporary culture. It's everywhere. It's in greeting cards. It's even in the church. This whole thing of well, just follow your heart, right?
I was just about to say that. I was about to say the follow your heart thing. I mean, it's so pervasive. And we don't do rehearsals for this. These shows that we do, we just basically get on and start talking. So that was right. A plan. I was about to just quote that.
Well, you see it everywhere. And the fundamental assumption in that statement is that your heart is good. Well, what if your heart's not good? What if follow your heart means that you just want to kick the crap out of this guy that gave you a hard time? If we're honest, look at the world right now. Look at the violence. Look at the horrible ways that people are treating each other. Those are people who are following their heart.
That's right.
And that's the result.
It's interesting going. You can play this off of contemporary culture, atheism, for that matter, liberal politics, progressive Christianity. All of these start with the assumption that we're basically good, but none of these views have the belief in an absolutely good God. Even right. Progressive Christianity tells us that God is evolving. Well, if God is evolving, then God is not absolutely good. He's only at best relatively good. Well, so if you can't square any of these views, as you said, with the idea that we're fundamentally bad or that we're fundamentally good, it's a self-defeating proposition either way, because by what standard do you judge your goodness or badness?
Right. That's right.
You can't judge your goodness or badness by an absolute standard. So it's meaningless to speak of us as either intrinsically good or intrinsically bad or getting better or getting worse. None of this makes any real sense.
Yeah, it just means everything really is relative, and the postmodernists have won.
Right.
So, I see it in the whole LGBTQ thing and the whole trans ideology, the idea
that your
alphabet
letter's wrong though, Ross. Is LGBTQ. Come on, man. And there's an IA double plus. It's the alphabet soup people, as they say.
Okay, I'm sorry. Oh boy. It's there's no standard for me. I will follow my heart. If I'm 13 years old and I feel like I want to be a girl, then nobody can tell me different from that, because I know best what's right for me.
Right.
Follow your heart.
Well,
And
look, I mean, I don't want to totally interrupt you, but remember, I mean, just recently after these shootings, people showed up at the Capitol in Nashville, and they were holding up the number 7, saying that there were 7 victims in this incident. Now, they did that without any sense of there being a parent who's just lost a child who is having to watch them say that there was a 7th victim there. Think of the insensitivity that kind of goes into that sort of action.
yeah.
I know that Christians have done similar things to other people, which actually proves our point. We all struggle with this. But like, not long after 9/11, there was a movement among some Muslims to buy some land and build a mosque right down from where the Twin Towers stood.
Yeah.
And there were people that were protesting. Now, I affirm the legal right of anyone to worship anywhere. And so if Muslims want to buy a plot of land and worship God in the way they choose, I'm all for that, in terms of just their political right to do it. But the insensitivity that goes into such a thing, when people have a resentment against your people because they kind of associate you with the attacks, sensitivity alone should have made them say, you know what, we want to just take a little higher ground here. And we understand that we're going to have to win the people's trust again, given what we've done. I would like to think that if I, as a Christian, lose someone's trust because of something I've done, that I would actually do my best to make amends and not be insensitive to how they're feeling about me after I've done something to hurt them. And yet, how many times do we see people over and over and over again just get rid of that basic common intuition that we should have, most of us do have, and yet we rarely exercise?
Yeah. That's good. We see it a lot too in liberal politics, Travis. I think a really good example is this whole defund the police movement, which is just insanity. But finally, I feel like I understand what that's about. It's that there's all these oppressive systems that are putting people down, and of course they are going to rebel and do criminal and illegal things. And if we just back off and take the pressure off, they'll find that goodness in themselves and come around, and our cities will actually be safer because the police won't be so oppressive. And of course, everywhere this has been tried, everywhere where there's these DAs that are backing off on prosecution, it's gone in exactly the direction that the Bible would predict.
Right.
That it just becomes chaos. People take advantage of it because guess what? They're not basically good.
In fact, it kind of proves the point, right? Why do we need police if people are basically good?
Right.
Yeah. And the defunding of the police movement is itself an attempt to put the "we are basically good" principle in practice. And it would seem that if we did put that in practice, things will work out just fine. We're all just fine. But it's been a disaster, to say the least.
I would say to everyone, if you're on the fence about this, follow the evidence. Don't believe one way or another on this because it's stressful or uncomfortable, or you don't want to believe it. Follow the evidence, and the evidence is going to take you in the direction that we are fundamentally screwed up.
Or follow your heart.
Yeah.
Follow your heart. If you're truly honest and you follow your heart, you will see just how messed up you really are. And it's not a messed up as in I can't help it, but it's a morally culpable messed upness, if you will. It's you're screwed up, and there's a part of you that likes it, which is it makes it all the worse.
Yeah. And then, of course, progressive Christianity, like right in our backyard, Travis. This idea that, we don't really need Christ to come and die and resurrect. And really all religions lead to God anyway. And I have this quote that I found on progressivechristianity.org that I want to read this. I didn't have time to type it in, but I just want to read it. It says, it's called Moving Beyond the Doctrine of Original Sin, the Fall, and maybe even the Doctrine of Grace. Humanity is not inherently evil or sinful or broken. Creation has been groaning for billions of years so that we might evolve. Creation continues to groan as we evolve into all that we may be. I'm not saying that humanity is not capable of evil, or that we are not capable of sin, or that there are parts of us that are not broken. I'm not saying that we are perfect. I'm saying that we are incomplete, and out of our incompleteness, evil, sin, and brokenness can emerge. But we are fearfully and wonderfully made, capable of great goodness, and innately wired to a pull towards cooperation. We have a role to play in the ongoing evolution of our species. Competition, violence, and the survival of the fittest are not the keys to our evolution. Cooperation and compassion are the keys to our evolution into a more complete species. We have a role to play in determining how and what we evolve into. All that potential is entrusted to us.
And who says?
There is...
How do they know that? I mean, if the Bible is not true, the Bible is not, according to progressive Christianity, the Bible is not inspired of God. There isn't even a God to inspire it. They are panentheists. They believe that God evolves, the universe evolves. God is in some sense dependent upon the universe. So the Bible is just a collection of human wisdom, which may or may not be true. So how do they know that we're fearfully and wonderfully made? And how do they know that if evolution has for billions of years been progressive through the whole idea of survival of the fittest and conquest and so forth, why are we going to change that strategy now and think that evolution can move forward without that? Who says?
Right. And how do you... If the Bible's not completely true, then it's just up to us to pick and choose what we want to believe.
Right.
So it's and you notice what's completely, entirely missing in that entire statement is anything about God, about Christ, about his death, about the atonement, and our need for God in any way. We could have left God out of this completely.
Because Christ may not have existed, and who cares whether he did or didn't. Christ definitely did not rise from the dead. That's a myth. Christ, therefore, did not die as an atonement for sins, a barbaric doctrine if there ever was one. This is how so-called progressive Christians think. They don't think that the fundamental essential beliefs upheld by the earliest Christians are true. And yet Christianity is true anyway. It's an utter contradiction.
Yeah.
It's an enigma wrapped inside a riddle, inside a contradiction. It is moronic. I appreciate the person who says, I've looked at the evidence and the evidence doesn't point to Christianity, therefore I reject it. I can appreciate that person. I know where I stand with him. I cannot understand the person who says everything the Bible teaches that's unique to Christianity is false, and Christianity is true anyway. I just find that to be utterly baffling.
Yeah, and Elisa Childers is right when she says it's really a progressive Christianity is a different religion.
Oh, altogether, absolutely.
Travis, we're out of time, man. We're out of time. I hate this, but this has been great. We'll do this next week, and we'll pick it up right here. Why do people believe this wacky doctrine that people are basically good?
And check out my other show on Consider This.
Yes,
We're
terrific.
putting out. We're doing the Life of Christ. We're assessing the debate on the resurrection between Bart Ehrman and Justin Bass this Friday at 12:00. So check it out.
Let's do it. Thank you, Travis.
Take care, man.
All right.